Graphics card prices have been coming down, and they're actually staying in stock now, so hopefully that means people are getting excited about building PCs and watching build-related content again. This PC next to me is a $900 all-new parts build that I put together recently, and it features a 12th gen Intel i3 processor, something that I've really been wanting to play with. I want to thank Micro Center for helping me out with this build. They are hands down my favorite sponsors to work with because they're a drama-free company with great selection of products, fantastic prices and deals, and have top-notch customer service. Right now, they're also running their promo for new customers to receive a free 256GB SSD. Details on that in the description below. As always, I'll have links to all the products used in this build in the description, and the good thing about this build is that even if you don't have a Micro Center nearby, this is pretty easy to replicate using other popular online retailers, and it still comes in at a similar price. Starting the parts off, we have the processor, which is the Intel i3 12100F. This is a 4-core 8-thread processor on the LGA 1700 socket that comes in at roughly $100 MSRP, and even though I haven't actually seen it going for that cheap, I was able to pick this up for $110 very easily since it's priced that way across multiple retailers. At the time of this recording, Micro Center does not have these in stock or even listed on their website despite having the 12th gen i5 and i7 products. I'm told that they're having supply issues and they don't know when they can get them in. So for now, you will have to get it elsewhere or bump that up to the i5 12400, which they do have in stock. Either processor will work in this build just fine. We're sticking with the Intel stock cooler for this build. The 12100F is not a particularly power hungry or hot CPU, and this is sufficient for cooling it. The motherboard I paired with the 12100F is the Gigabyte B660M DS3H. This is one of the lower cost options when it comes to budget B660 boards, and for an entry level build like this where it's being paired with the 12100 or even the 12400, it'll work fine. This board does have some additional features that's not included in budget H610 micro ATX boards, such as additional M.2 slots, an M.2 heatsink for one of the SSDs, 4 total DIMM slots, USB-C in the rear I/O, and some heatsink coverage on the VRMs. If you do know from the start that you will eventually upgrade to say an i7 or an unlocked i5, then do consider a higher end B660 or potentially a Z690 board. For the graphics card, we have the RX 6600. This is the Gigabyte Eagle OC model. When it comes to current gen graphics cards, those being ones from Nvidia's RTX 3000 lineup or AMD's RX 6000 lineup, this is pretty much the cheapest viable card I can recommend right now. Yes, the 6500 XT does exist, but we don't talk about that around here.
We don't talk about 6500 XT.
The RX 6600 at the time of recording this video is one of the very few cards that can easily be found in stock closest to its MSRP, which is $330, so this having a frequent price of $370 isn't too bad if you are done with waiting and want to build right now. Keep in mind though, prices are expected to keep dropping, so it's really up to you whether to keep waiting or to pull the trigger now. Now let's say you're very anti-Team Red for whatever reason and will only consider Nvidia graphics cards. In an ideal world, you'd consider the RTX 3060, which is supposed to be the same price as the RX 6600. However, those are still holding a decently high premium at the moment, and surprisingly, the card that's priced closer to the 6600 is actually the RTX 3050. So for the benchmarks that we'll see later on in the video, I also ran an identical set of tests with the 3050, and the performance numbers will hopefully be useful for those who are considering it as an alternative. Do note that we're still in the middle of price decline, so these cards can land anywhere relative to each other. So if anything, take away the performance differences that you see and make the best decision that you can based on the prices that you're able to find for each card. For memory, we've got 16GB of Crucial Ballistics RGB at 3200MHz CL16. If you don't care about aesthetics or LEDs, then you can get an equivalent kit for $10 to $15 less. But in this build, I'll be matching the color scheme of the Intel stock cooler's blue plastic ring since that's the fixed color that's not easily removable. For storage, I went with the 1TB Intel 660p M.2 NVMe SSD. This was the first consumer QLC based NVMe drive that came out and has consistently been one of the cheapest drives on the market. This does have DRAM and both a static and dynamic SLC cache, and as the drive fills up, the effective SLC cache gets smaller. That means large transfers will be noticeably slower when the drive is near max capacity. This isn't really an issue for gamers, but if large file transfers are in your daily routine, like if you're a content creator or a game developer or something like that, who is frequently moving a lot of data between drives, then it's best to spend a little bit more for something like the WD SN550, which is a good budget alternative with more consistent performance. Powering the system will be the 650W EVGA BQ. If there's anything that I'd replace in this build, if I were to redo this all over again, it would be this power supply. Micro Center has somewhat of a limited selection of power supplies, especially budget-oriented ones that are found in the upper tiers of the PSU tier list. There's no inherent issues with this unit. It's completely safe and it will power the system as configured with headroom for both a CPU and GPU upgrade down the line. However, there are better options that are often on sale elsewhere. The Asus TUF 650 watt for around $60 on Amazon would be a great alternative. Housing all the components is going to be the Cooler Master MB311L. I'm a big fan of micro ATX cases. It's hands down my favorite form factor, and this case checks off a number of things that I think a lot of people would be looking for. Good airflow, modern aesthetics, adjustable RGB fans, easy cable management, and affordable. If I had to nitpick something about this case, aside from the breakaway PCIe brackets, come on Cooler Master, I'd want them to include an exhaust fan. It doesn't even need to be an RGB one, a plain black one would be fine. It's not a matter of thermals because as configured, the temperatures are a non-issue. It just looks a little odd and empty in the rear of the case due to the lack of a fan. That aside though, this is one of my easy to recommend micro ATX cases. Taking a look at the overall parts list and price summary, we're coming in right at that $900 price point. If you had a little bit more to spend, there are a number of different ways you can upgrade this system, including a jump up to the i5-12400F, or switching the graphics card out for a 6600 XT, or with a RTX 3060 if you want to go Team Green, all of which should still keep the system under $1,000. Now on the other hand, say you had a little bit less money to spend and you needed to push this down to $800, swapping out to a smaller SSD, grabbing a H610 motherboard, a cheaper case, and plain RAM can push that total down without affecting the performance you see later on in the benchmarks. Before we get to those though, let's take a quick look at how the build came out with some higher quality close-up B-roll shots. Alright, time to look at the performance. Like I said earlier, there will be two runs shown, one with the RX 6600 in the system as configured, and another with the RTX 3050 swapped in. Resizable bar was enabled because it's supported, and all parts are running at stock with the exception of the RAM, which is running at the 3200 MHz XMP. All titles were tested in 1080p, as that's the intended resolution for these graphics cards, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the benchmarks. So there you have it. I'm a big fan of the performance that's packed inside the i3-12100. The only thing I saw it struggling in was the X264 encoded streaming of a demanding AAA title, which as you saw produced a stuttery mess on the viewer's end, despite the gameplay itself actually being fine on my end as the player. It was actually quite smooth with regards to the average and 1% lows. This is easily addressed though, using graphics card hardware encoding as the results showed. Remember, this is an i3 processor after all, it does have limitations. The i3-12100 places itself in the $100-ish segment of the market, with its only real competition being its older sibling, the i3-10100, and its multiple variants. There really aren't that many options at this price point as of this video. AMD is coming out with some new SKUs like the Ryzen 3 4100 at $99, but that's going to be based on the older Zen 2 architecture, and we've yet to see any performance numbers for it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts though. When AMD does finally come out with those Ryzen processors that are going to directly compete with the 12100 and they're readily available, which do you think will be the better buy? Let me know down in the comments below. All that aside though, things are looking very promising as we approach summer 2022. Hopefully the CPU options at the lower cost can be met with further GPU price drops. It's kind of funny pairing a $100 CPU with a $300+ graphics card. I guess another viable option would be when the used market gets flooded with all the crypto miners ditching their inventory, then there will be plenty of like $200 to $250 graphics card options. Older cards like the GTX 1070, the 1070 Ti, and 1080 would be perfect to pair with the 12100. Until then, we're just gonna have to play the waiting game. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this video though. Hope you all enjoyed and found this either helpful or entertaining in one way or another. I want to thank you all as always for watching and for continuing to support the channel. And huge thanks to the channel members for their above and beyond support as always. New merch design was launched recently, so check that out if you're interested in picking some up. Links will be down below. Other than that though, be safe out there and I will see you in the comments as well as in the next video and or stream. Bye.